David Judge from Affordable Staff, and welcome to our raw Q&A sessions around outsourcing. We've created a series of videos for businesses that have considered outsourcing and have genuine questions or concerns that need answering. Today's format is around upskilling and training, as this is an area that we find clients seek the most guidance with. We're going to talk about how to engage staff to get the best result, initial and ongoing training, and once you've gone through the first two steps, how you know if your team are performing in the role. An important fact is that training can be very easy as long as you follow the processes we mentioned in today's video. So why are we discussing this topic for one of our videos? Simply because we've watched a number of our clients and have ourselves experienced pain when these processes weren't followed. Okay, let's get into it.
How do I engage my offshore staff to get the best results?
Now, when you employ offshore staff, it's the first step of several stages with the final goal of being delegating your tasks. Now, at this stage, it's critical that your staff understand their tasks, their roles, and their responsibilities. Now, once they have this information, what is the best way to engage your offshore staff? Well, first of all, it's actually important to understand what the word engage means. Now, this means to email, talk, chat to your team regularly, or at least in the beginning talk to them regularly, to understand how well they understand the tasks they need to perform. Now, what does this mean practically? This means that you should be engaging them for at least 1 to 2 hours each day, and it may also mean that you or one of your local nominated staff may have to hold their hands at times, and other times it may mean just to be there as a support. Now, at this early stage, it's not enough to send them an email of the tasks, give them generic tutorial videos of those tasks, and then expect them to perform the work after they've watched those videos. Now, we've actually watched this happen time and time again from clients that may not have the time or think that once they've employed their outsourced team member, that that's it, that's all they need to do is give them the videos to watch and for them to go and do the job. Now, even if you're employing a staff member that's for a specialist role, like let's say like a property manager or an accountant, if you don't invest the time at the beginning, it will take longer for a person to understand their role within your business specifically. So to summarize, engage your team by email, chat, and voice at the very beginning, and engage every day. Be there for them, engage in them regularly, and make sure that they understand the job that they need to perform, and make sure that you're just there as a support.
How do I complete initial and ongoing training?
Okay, so how you go about your training will determine how fast and how well offshore staff can pick up and perform their role. Now, by completing your initial training, it's common to share too much information with your staff, and this can actually cause information overload and as a result make it harder for a person to understand the overall tasks that they need to perform within the role. Now, a lot of people believe that the way you overcome this is to actually fly overseas, meet with your team, and then, spend a week-long training session with them. But you don't have to do that. Well, you can if you want to, but what we've found, overcoming it is really simple. To do it, all you do is you break your training down into stages instead of one big hit. You take the tasks and you break them into smaller training sessions. Now, it's easy to presume that a person that has completed the training just knows how to do the job, so you should also have practical exercises within your business that a staff member can perform to make sure they understand the details of that task. Now, at this stage, you need to invest at least double the amount of time in the practical part. So let's say you learn the task via training, give them double the amount of time in practical hands-on stuff to make sure that they have experience in real-world scenarios, and it will clear up any confusion around the task. Again, by following this process, it makes it easier, as there's nothing more painful than spending a whole lot of time giving one big lump of training just to realize that the time is wasted as they've only retained a small piece of overall information. So to summarize, the best way to complete initial and ongoing training is to break it into smaller sessions, expose them to a lot more hands-on, and they can be supporting them during that period of time, and for you to ask a lot of questions so you're confident that they understand the task.
How do I know if my new team member is performing in the role?
Okay, now if you're effectively engaging with your team member and you're breaking the initial and the ongoing training into smaller size bites, then you will quickly understand how well your team member is performing. Now, this is a really important point that I just made. Now, there are times when outsourcing has failed, and those times are when clients generally don't even have a conversation with their staff. They don't really, guide them and offer them any support. Now, you will know if your staff member is engaged and if they're able to perform the task effectively, as they will be completing the allocated tasks, they offer feedback, suggestions and input, and like general two-way communication that you wouldn't know if you weren't actually communicating with them. Now, we most recently had a client that said their outsourced staff member wasn't working out, just to discover they weren't even talking to them or offering any feedback. Their only form of communication was via 2 emails that they sent per week. If the task wasn't done properly, they would just sit there and complain about it, and I'd fix it up themselves, and then I'd go and send them another email, and that can only work for a period of time before you think outsourcing is going to fail. So the bottom line is, if you want outsourcing to work, then you need to treat your staff like part of your team. If you do, then you know the areas for improvement and more specifically how well they're performing. Okay, that's it. If you'd like to find out more about how outsourcing can work within your business, you can call us anywhere within Australia on 1300 139 482. This is David Judge from Affordable Staff, showing Australian businesses how to succeed with outsourcing.